1. This story happened to me back in September, and I'll start out by saying that I am one of the most paranoid people I've ever known. I still make my parents watch me when I leave the house to make sure I get to the car if it's dark. I carry pepper spray at all times. And if I'm home alone, the slightest noise outside freaks me out, even though we have a ton of stray neighborhood cats traveling through the yard. I also have a rule. I never, ever answer the door to anyone I do not closely know if I am home alone. Not even neighbors. In fact, my sheer paranoia is one of the reasons people don't take me too seriously when I panic about things anymore. A neighbor once showed up at the door and knocked on it while I was home alone after dark, and when I didn't answer, he went to the side door and knocked as well. This sent me into a complete panic, calling and texting my boyfriend while he was at work, and probably annoying him to no end. Although at the time I had no idea it was a friendly neighbor just returning some of our mail he had gotten by mistake. He still teases me about this sometimes. He also knows that once he has left for the day, I lock the doors, and that if he is going to come home either on break or to get something he forgot, that I will probably freak out if he doesn't call and let me know first. I know my fears are sometimes irrational, but it drives me nuts that he forgets to let me know he is on his way home all the time. I guess that's why on this particular day, I almost opened the door to a suspicious stranger. I had just returned home from school that day, and I was about to start getting ready for work when I saw the doorknob turning like someone was about to walk in. Since there was no knock, I assumed it was my boyfriend just showing up again and went to let him in. Now, my doorknob for some reason still turns pretty far when it's locked, and you try to turn it. It just doesn't open. I think it's just old, but from the other side you can definitely see it turning, not just jiggling. Thankfully, we had recently gotten a new puppy, who screwed up the bottom part of our blinds, allowing us to see the ground, and right before I opened the door, I noticed that he was just wearing regular shoes I did not recognize, and not the work boots my boyfriend wears to work every day. As soon as I realized it was not my boyfriend on the other side, I immediately stepped back from the door and walked into the next room to grab my pepper spray, just in case they forced their way in. That's when he finally started knocking. He knocked for what felt like several minutes, but was probably only about 30 seconds. Still more than just the standard knock twice and wait for an answer. I don't know why, but for once, in a real potentially dangerous situation, I was very calm. It was almost as if survival instincts kicked in, but something compelled me to remain very quiet, very calm, and just send a few quick texts to my mom and boyfriend explaining the situation and wait for the person to leave. I reasoned with myself that it could be something innocent, a door-to-door salesman, a neighbor dropping off mail again, etc. And while this does not explain the turning of the handle before even knocking, I was just reminding myself that I had allowed myself to completely flip out many times before about things that turned out to be completely innocent. At this point, my puppy and my other big dog, with a big bark, are going absolutely nuts, barking loudly at whoever was on the other side of the door. And they finally leave. Once he is a good distance away from the door, I peek through the side of the blinds in the living room to see who it had been. And this is when I realized it could really have been someone dangerous. I see a man in regular clothes, jeans and a dirty t-shirt, walking quickly back to a car that was in the middle of the road, still running, and the door still open, with another man in the driver's seat. As soon as he got back in the car, he no more than shut the door and the car sped away. The first red flag to me was trying to enter without knocking. The second was the dirty street clothes and the regular car not marked by any company. Ruling out a business-related visit. The biggest red flag was the car still running, door open, as if preparing for a quick getaway. My town has a private Facebook group for members of the community to post on about any general thing that could be of use to other community members, such as opening of new businesses, people searching for recommendations, people looking for or selling certain items, or even some posts like mine, alerting others of a wide variety of things. After a few minutes had passed, I posted in the group that people should be careful who they open their doors to, and explained what had happened to me. Several comments I received said that friends had informed them of situations similar to this in the same general area. And I had not provided my street name, but one commenter gave an example of this happening to someone on the street behind mine within the last 2 weeks. Same description, car running, waiting for him in the road, speeding off. Makes me think they probably had ill intentions, whether it be abduction, robbery, etc. I'm not entirely sure. Thank God for my naughty puppy screwing up my blinds and saving me from opening my door to a suspicious stranger. We were pretty mad at the time, but she may have saved me from getting abducted, robbed, or worse. 2. I live in England, in a small town with about 1,000 people there. We are located in the deep countryside, and crime just doesn't happen often, apart from the odd stolen bike, etc. I suppose we are quite relaxed about home security, and will often leave the door open all day in summer for the dog to walk in and out as he pleases, leaving the cars unlocked and even the house sometimes never with any problems. Maybe our naiveness played a part in this story. It is important to explain that my kitchen backs out onto a public footpath, which in summer is extremely busy with people walking their dogs. They can look straight in the many windows from the footpaths into our kitchen. Now, with the setting explained, I'll get on with the story. I was about 16 at the time. This story was a couple of years ago. I had taken my dog out for a walk mid-afternoon, like I did every day. I grabbed his lead and locked the door and took him out for an hour walk, through the fields that surrounded my house, and then came back. When I came back, I opened the door and placed the keys on the kitchen table, and went on with my day. Later on, my mother asked me if I had seen the kitchen door key, and I explained that I had left it on the table. She went and looked, and it wasn't there. I then doubted myself, thinking, maybe I didn't lock the door when I left, and I dropped it on a walk, although I was certain I could remember leaving it on the table. I didn't think much about it, thinking that it would appear in the house, and if it didn't, I would find it on a walk the next day, as I always walk the same route. A couple days went by and the key still wasn't found. I searched the house and my walk route, but it couldn't be found. I found it rather strange, as I could recall putting it on the table, but assumed I had imagined it and I must have dropped it. Luckily, we had another key and we went on using that key for the door instead. About 4 days after losing my keys, which didn't just have the kitchen door key but also had the front door key on, myself and my mum was disrupted from watching TV by our dog barking like crazy in the kitchen. This was very out of character for him, as he only normally barks in the day when people walk past the kitchen. Me and my mum went in to find out what had upset him, to find the new key had fallen out of the door and was on the floor. This was extremely strange, because we have extremely old doors since my house is about 200 years old. The keys are very thick, old-fashioned keys, and the only way they can fall out of the door is if you push a key in from the other side, or that you pull it out. Me and my mum was a little concerned at this point, but decided we was being silly, so we locked and bolted the door and went to bed. When I got to my room, I locked my bedroom door, as I quite often do, to stop my parents disrupting me in the morning. Thank God I did this night. The next morning I was woken up by my dad shouting he was leaving for work, and he would lock the door. My mum had already left, so it was just me in. I heard him lock the door and I tried to go back to sleep. Roughly 10 minutes later, I heard the door being unlocked and opened again, and someone come straight upstairs. I thought nothing of this and assumed my dad had forgotten something. That was until the person walked straight upstairs to my bedroom door and started to rattle it forcefully, trying to get it open. I was confused and shouted, "Hello?" At this moment I heard someone sprint from my room and down the stairs, nearly shaking the house. He ran that fast. I knew it wasn't my dad now. I jumped out of bed and unlocked my door and ran downstairs to make sure my dog was okay. When I got to the stairs, I could see that the front door was wide open. I panicked and ran outside to see if I could see anyone, but I couldn't. At this point I started to cry when it finally occurred to me that someone must have seen my keys on the kitchen table, taken them, and tried to get into my house the night before, but was disturbed by my dog. It didn't make sense to me though, because right next to our front door was my MacBook, 50-inch TV, a mobile phone, all in arm's reach, but the person didn't stop at all. They just walked straight up to my room with purpose. I phoned my brother, who came storming round, trying to console me. He decided he would take me out to get some food after calming me down as much as he could. When we was about to leave, we made sure all doors downstairs were locked and bolted except the front door, which cannot be bolted. My brother also went upstairs and shut every single door of the rooms upstairs. We went out and came back to the front door again unlocked. At this point I was so scared. If once hadn't been enough. We went inside to see again that nothing was stolen. Everything was in the same place apart from the laptop and the mobile, which we had moved beforehand. We went upstairs to check if anything was gone upstairs, to find when we went upstairs only one door was open, which was, you guessed it, my bedroom. Nothing I could notice was stolen. You could tell someone had looked around, but I couldn't see anything missing. My parents assumed that I must have a stalker, which I couldn't pinpoint anyone who it could likely be. Being a teenager with red hair, my looks had always given me, and still, till this day, gets me unwanted attention of many creepy men, which I will put this encounter down to. We changed the locks on all the doors and added extra bolts. We have never had any issues since, but I am still terrified to be home alone. It terrifies me to think what the person's intentions were and how persistent he was at breaking in. I'm so glad I had locked my bedroom door that day, and the intruder hadn't barged into myself. My stalker, let's not meet again. 3. Alright, now please don't start commenting how stupid I was, but remember I was still a teenager, and teenagers do stupid stuff. So, as a teenager, I was rather developed and could pass as a 17-year-old, even when I was still 14. I got much attention from guys my age and guys a lot older than me. But despite others maybe disliking the attention, I adored the attention I had, and flirted back with them as well. I think it was because I didn't get attention from anywhere else, so I was craving it from anywhere I could. That also meant getting it from online. I liked to chat with guys and constantly lead them on. I never took nudes. That was too far, even for me around that time. I talked with many guys, usually much older than me, usually in their late 20s or 30s. There was this particular guy whose name was Tom. Now he was the flirtiest yet, sweetest of them all. He would constantly flirt with me, despite knowing my actual age after I told him. He would constantly compliment me, ask about my day, how I was doing in school, etc. Now I found that sweet because of my stupid teenage mind, and always talked with him. Now usually I got bored talking with one guy after a week, but with Tom, it lasted for a good 2 months. I really liked him. He was a sweet and nice guy. He did constantly ask me for my home address, which I always declined because, despite being stupid, I wasn't that stupid. But I was stupid enough to tell him where I went to school, which is probably what led to this encounter. One day my mother had to go to work, which I was used to her leaving so suddenly, and leaving me at home alone. She was a hard-working single mother who did the best to provide me with everything. I was sitting on the couch, watching a random soap opera on the TV, until I heard my doorbell ring. I smiled, thinking it was one of my friends. We had the habit of visiting each other unexpectedly. I opened the door and there he stood. Tom was standing in front of me, grinning widely down on me. "Hey, baby." This sent shivers down my spine, and I quickly pushed the door closed, locking it. Now, I liked him, but even I knew this was wrong. I had never told him where I lived, so this had meant that this creep had followed me. He started banging on the door, making me even more afraid. I was a tiny teenage girl, and he was a tall, muscular man. I had no chance against him if he got in. "Come on, baby, let me in. I just want to have some fun." I did the first thing I could think of. I grabbed my phone and quickly called the police, explaining them the situation as best I could, while tears of fear ran down my cheeks. They told me they would be there in 15 minutes, and that I should find a place to hide. I quickly put my phone away and ran upstairs towards my bathroom. I got in, closed the door, and hid myself behind the shower curtain. After God knows how long, his flirty behavior started turning into him screaming and banging on my door. He screamed about all the horrible things he was going to do with me once he got in. I was crying uncontrollably. I knew that the outside door wouldn't last for that long, and if it would open, I wouldn't survive. After a few more moments, I could hear sirens in the distance, and more screaming downstairs, that only got louder with more voices adding in. Miss, where are you?" I heard a man's voice downstairs that wasn't Tom's. I got out of my hiding spot and opened the door. I saw from the window how 2 policemen pulled Tom away and pushed him into the car. The other police officer who was with me put a hand on my shoulder and gently smiled at me. "What's your mother's number? I think it's best if you call her." I nodded and dialed in her number, despite still crying. So I dialed it quite shakily. The police officer talked with my mom, and Mom came home soon after. She hugged me tightly, wiping my tears away, calming me down. She thanked the police officer and left. I explained everything to her, and she consulted me through all of it. She let me stay home for a few days, staying there with me. I regret everything I did. I really shouldn't have done it. But I am still a human being, and we make mistakes. But Tom, I'm glad that we never had to meet again, and I hope it stays this way as long as I live. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 167. Thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, this is Wednesday now, so should be able to have glitch stories for you guys tomorrow, paranormal on Friday, and fingers and toes crossed for a TIFU on Saturday. I think we should be okay for that. And I might possibly have a little bonus on Saturday or Sunday as well. I've got a story, it's a no-sleep story I recorded ages ago, then I completely and totally forgot I'd recorded it, so it's been sitting there on my hard drive, unnoticed, minding its own business for a while. So I'm going to get that edited and cleaned up, and I will send a message apologizing to the person who wrote it, because I think I'd promised them I'd have it up the following week, and I completely forgot about it. So we'll have that at the weekend. Just a little short no-sleep story. And while I'm not going to make a regular thing of it, I'll try and just whenever I've got a few, like 30 minutes an hour or whatever here and there, I'll try and record something extra just so I can slip it in randomly as a little bonus here and there. They're generally quite well received, so I'll try to keep doing them. And with that, I think I'm going to head off for now. I got a bit of editing to do. I want to try and get my videos done and start uploading within the next couple of hours. I'm trying to be stricter with myself as we head into this brand new year here, and force myself to get things done quicker. I can get myself into the right headspace to record. Now it's a bit easier to do that for me now than it used to be. So I just have to make myself do the editing and put the videos together and then get them up quicker, which then means, I can either relax properly instead of just being lazy for half an hour, a couple hours here and there, then scrambling to try and get everything done before it's too late, or I can then have more time to focus on other projects, like that writing I mentioned a couple of videos back, or setting up things for future videos. So, hopefully that works out. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.